What's up, everybody? How we doing? Matt Modi here with OddsJam, and it's just insane the amount of value you can find on these two NFL games going on this weekend. Obviously, both games being played on Sunday. I've been continually refreshing the positive expected value page and just finding more and more incredibly valuable player props to lock in for this weekend. Some mainline bets have been available as well, but for this video, we're specifically going to be looking at player props. So I hopped on the OddsJam Positive EV page. I filtered specifically for the NFL, specifically for player props, and a ton of valuable plays are available here on the Positive EV page. So I'm going to go through every single one, give my favorite bets for the both NFL games going on this weekend. I think I have 7 total in this video, if I remember correctly. So I got a lot to get into. So let's get into it. First up, first play we're locking in here is Miles Sanders under 5.5 receiving yards. It's an incredibly low number, but it is in fact still a really good play. OddsJam, which is pulls lines from the sharpest sportsbooks in the world, price this at about minus 124, essentially, if we can round up from minus 123.6. And these odds are very important, right? The no vig odds you see in this column here. Obviously, I know that this play is the Positive EV one because it's bolded with the blue rectangle around it. But everything is kind of derived from these odds here. So when it comes to sports betting, sportsbooks are all going to have different odds, and some sportsbooks are better than others at pricing odds, right? Like if we just look at this play here, BetMGM is at minus 115. We see odds all the way up to minus 154. That's an insane difference between two sportsbooks for the same exact play. They're both pricing Miles Sanders over under 5.5 receiving yards. Or I guess in this case, they're both pricing the under 5.5 receiving yards, but like 40 cents apart, $40 apart if you're trying to win $100 on this one. So some sportsbooks are consistently more right more often than others. It's as simple as that. So what OddsJam did was use that knowledge and say, hey, if we can identify what sportsbooks are consistently the best, we can use them essentially to set the markets moving forward on future betting opportunities. So in this case, it really should be priced at minus 124 based on the sharpest sportsbooks in the world. This is a weighted average pulled from multiple sportsbooks using a weighted average to get these odds. We can get it all the way at minus 115. That's a really valuable gap between these two numbers, right? And then again, look at how low BetMGM is compared to every other sportsbook. You want to start with Pinnacle, very, very sharp sportsbook, generally considered to be the sharpest. Price this at minus 133. BetOnline, another very sharp sportsbook, at minus 149. The closest book is Bet365, 15 cents lower. Just look across the market, right? You can ignore this minus 119 because PrizePicks is a DFS company, so they have the same implied odds for every single play. But BetMGM just has a wild mispriced play here, and that's generally profitable to take advantage of in the long run. So that's exactly why this is a play. Play number 1, Miles Sanders under 5.5 receiving yards, minus 115 at BetMGM. Next up, we're looking at MVS Marquez Valdez Scantling under 27.5 receiving yards. So I think I locked this one in already in a previous video, but it's still available. So if you missed that one, I still recommend locking it in. It's at minus 110 odds at Bet365. OddsJam Perfect Line prices this at about minus 115. BetMGM has it at minus 110. Look across the board at the rest of the sportsbooks. Pinnacle at minus 133. We see 2 books that are close, Ballybet and BetMGM, and then Betfred kind of close at minus 120. But across the board, pretty much in the minus 130s if you look at the majority of sportsbooks. At a minimum, 20 cents higher meaning more likely to occur than the Bet365 line. So this is another really good one. MVS Marquez Valdez Scantling under 27.5 receiving yards, minus 110 odds at Bet365. Play number 3, another one that I've already locked in on a previous video, but it's still really good, as you can see here. So I locked in Quez Watkins to go under 16.5 receiving yards. it's still a really good play at 14.5 receiving yards, taking him to go under. So this is at minus 113 odds at Bet Rivers. OddsJam Perfect Line prices this pretty much exactly at minus 116.5 here. And then looking at the sharp books, BetOnline has this all the way at minus 143. And then for a play like this, right, we only see a couple sportsbooks pricing it. If you view the event page in a new tab, it pulls up where every sportsbook prices the market, or excuse me, it pulls up odds for where every sportsbook prices Quez Watkins over under receiving yards. So we know that there's a difference in odds and where sportsbooks price things. There's also a difference in the lines themselves. Not every single sportsbook is going to price Quez Watkins, his over under, at 14.5. So we look into this one. So it looks like most sportsbooks actually have it at 15.5, but look at how heavily they juice it to go under. I mean, the closest odds we see looks like minus 120. So we're getting 7 cents better and getting this at minus 113. And then PointsBet has it all the way down at 10.5. So PointsBet is pretty significantly lower than what the Bet Rivers line has, and also every other book. So PointsBet is a little bit of an outlier here, but this minus 113 at Bet Rivers is a pretty good price because the juice isn't as high as it is, and it's just 1 yard difference. Now, obviously that yard's important, but in terms of the value, it's better to get the yard worse, essentially, but for better odds. It's the risk-reward payout, pretty much with everything that you kind of have to look for. And in this case, the under 14.5 is the best value. So that's play number 3, Quez Watkins under 14.5 receiving yards. Next up, we are looking at Joe Mixon and to go under 3.5 receptions. So Betfred has this at minus 125. The OddsJam Perfect Line has this at about minus 129. Again, you want to look at the sharp sportsbooks and where they price it. Pinnacle at minus 147. BetOnline at minus 156. PointsBet is kind of close at minus 135, but the rest of the books have it between minus 140 and minus 156. So 15 to 30 cents higher than the Betfred line, which is another just tool in our tool belt about why this is such a good bet. So this is the 4th one, Joe Mixon under 3.5 receptions. Next up, we're looking at Samaje Perine under 17.5 receiving yards. So Pinnacle is pretty favored on this one with the under at minus 128, the over at minus 102. They're heavily favoring the under. DraftKings is also giving us a pretty good price on this under at minus 120, the over at minus 110, as is BetMGM, same exact lines as DraftKings. And then if you want to view this one, view this event page in a new tab, we can see where other sportsbooks price the receiving yardage prop for Samaje Perine. So again, PointsBet kind of has this wildly priced at 20.5, but they have it at minus 125 odds. So again, the payout is significantly better with Caesars. But then in this case, it does work out. Let me zoom out a little bit here. More in our favor with pretty much majority of sportsbooks pricing this at 16.5 or even as low as 13.5. And then you want to look at BetOnline, which is this column right here. They have it a yard lower at 16.5. And in this case, we're getting really good. We're getting minus 103 odds. So the situation is a little bit different than the Quez Watkins one, because in this case, not only are we only getting minus 103 odds, but majority of sportsbooks have him priced lower than this. So the risk reward is even higher. It's less risk and higher reward. So this is a perfect situation of why you should be looking into the markets and seeing where other sportsbooks price things. So Samaje Perine under 17.5 receiving yards. This is play number 5. Play number 6, and this one hurts me as an Eagles fan. Miles Sanders under 51.5 rushing yards, Bet365 has this at minus 110. Pinnacle, pretty favored on it at minus 133. Same thing with DraftKings. Same thing with Caesars. And then we see Betfred and BetMGM, 5 to 10 cents lower. But this minus 110 is still a really good price. And the OddsJam Perfect Line has this at minus 111. So Miles Sanders as my, is it 6th pick, I believe, 5th or 6th pick, I can't remember now. Next up, we're looking at Kadarius Toney under 35.5 receiving yards. Similar logic here, getting a pretty good price at Bet365 at minus 110 odds. Pinnacle is pretty heavily favored on this one at minus 140. DraftKings at minus 135. Typical at minus 130. And then like when we see minus 120, minus 125. Some books are a little bit, excuse me, closer to this one, which is why you see the no big odds kind of a little bit closer to the bet that we're placing, but it's still an outlier. It's still positive EV. There is still a profitable gap between these two numbers, so it's still a good bet to lock in. So Kadarius Toney under 35.5 receiving yards. Then I think I have two more, so I'll go through these quickly. Number one, Jamar Chase over 83.5 receiving yards. Pinnacle has this at minus 121. DraftKings at minus 135. BetMGM is kind of close at minus 115. And then we see minus 122, minus 127. But similar logic here. If we open this one up in a new tab and see where other sports books are pricing it. So we took the over 83.5 at minus 110 odds. In this case, legitimately every single sportsbook prices it above this number if it doesn't have it at 83.5, including BetOnline, which is this column right here, BetOnline. And they actually favor the over at this number. So not only do they have it priced higher, but they also think that the over is the more likely scenario. So this is a pretty good price here, this over 83.5 at minus 110 odds. These are all bets that I've locked in. And of course, I just got logged out. But as you can see by the check mark here, this is something that I have locked in and added to my bet tracker. So Jamar Chase over 83.5 receiving yards. And then last play is Jalen Hurts under 250.5 passing yards. Another one that hurts me as an Eagles fan, but we'll trust the value. Pinnacle is pretty high on it at minus 133, as is DraftKings. And then this is going to be the same thing. We open his passing yardage prop up in a new tab. One book, BetMGM, prices it higher. Majority of them price it lower. And we see all the way down to 239, which is insane. It's 11 yards lower. And including BetOnline also has it lower at 249.5. So all in all, we're getting a really good price on Jalen Hurts to go under 250.5 passing yards. And that's going to be it for this video. Tons of player props for you guys to lock in. A little bit of a longer video, but hopefully you are able to lock these in and tail me. And that's it. So appreciate everybody watching and have a good one.